Here is chapter 2 from part 2 of Crime and Punishment. Run it. Raskolnikov says, and what if there has been a search already? What if I find them in my room? But here was his room, nothing and no one in it. No one had peeked in. Even Nastasia had not touched it. But heavens, how could he have left all those things in the hole? Uh, अरे ये तो पढ़ रखा भाई रुको 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 wait a minute we just got a problem uh, नहीं 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 पढ़ रखा नहीं पढ़ रखा but good good good. How could he have left all those things in the hole? He rushed to the corner, slipped his hand under the paper, pulled the things out, and lined his pockets with them. There were 8 articles in all, 2 little boxes with earrings or something of the sort. He hardly looked to see. Then 4 small leather cases. There was a chain, 2 merely wrapped in newspaper, and something else in newspaper. That looked like a medal. He put them all in the different pockets of his winter coat and the remaining pocket of his trousers, trying to hide them as much as possible. He took the purse too. Then he went out of his room, leaving the door open. He walked quickly and firmly, and though he felt shattered, he had his wits about him. He was afraid of being followed. He was afraid that in another half hour, another quarter of an hour perhaps, instructions would be issued for his pursuit. And so, at all costs, he must hide all traces before then. He must clear everything up while he still had some strength, some reasoning power left him. Where was he to go? That had long been settled. Throw them into the canal, and all traces hidden in the water. The thing would be at end. So he had decided in the night of this his delirium, when several times he had felt the urge to get up and go away, to make haste, and to get rid of it all. But to get rid of it turned out to be a very difficult task. He wandered along the bank of the Catherine Canal for half an hour or more and looked several times at the steps running down to the water, water. But he could not think of carrying out his plan. The raft stood at the steps edge, and women were washing clothes on them, or boats were tied there, and people were swarming everywhere. Moreover, he could be seen and noticed from the banks on all sides. It would look suspicious for a man to go down on purpose, stop, and throw something into the water. And what if the boxes were to float instead of sinking? And of course they would. Even as it was, everyone he met seemed to stare and look around as if they had nothing to do but to watch him. Why is it? Or can it be my imagination? He thought. At last, the thought struck him that it might be better to go to the Neva River. There were not so many people there. He would be less observed and it would be more convenient in every way. Above all, it was further off. He wondered how he could have been wandering for a good half an hour, worried and anxious in this dangerous place without thinking of it before, and that half hour he had lost over an irrational plan, simply because he had thought of it in his fever. He had become extremely absent minded and forgetful, and he was aware of it. He certainly must make haste. He walked toward the Neva along V Prospect, but on the way, another idea struck him. Why to the Neva? Would it not be better to go somewhere far off, to the island again? and there hide their things in some lonely place, in a woods or under a bush, and mark the spot perhaps. And though he felt incapable of clear judgment, the idea seemed to him a sound one, but he was not fated to go there. For coming out of V Prospect toward the square, he saw on the left a passage leading between two blank walls to a courtyard. Courtyard, yes. On the right hand, the blank, unwhitewashed wall of a four-story house stretched far into the court. On the left, on the left, a wooden fence ran parallel with it for 20 paces into the court, and then turned sharply to the left. Here was a deserted, fenced-off place where rubbish of different sorts was lying. At the end of the court, the corner of a low, dirty stone shed, apparently part of some workshop, peeped from behind the fence. It was probably a carriage builder's or carpenter's shed. The whole place from the entrance was black with coal dust. Here would be the place to throw it, he thought. Not seeing anyone in the yard, he slipped in, and at once saw near the gate a drain, such as is often put in yards where there are many workmen or cab drivers. And on the fence above had been scribbled in chalk the time honored joke, standing here strictly forbidden. This was all the better, for there would be nothing suspicious about his going in. Here I could throw it all in a heap and get away. Looking around once more, with his hand already in his pocket, he noticed against the outer wall between the entrance and the drain a big rough stone. 20 seconds, wait. God, Jesus Christ. Big rough stone, weighing perhaps 60 pounds. The other side of the wall was a street. He could hear passers by, always numerous in that part, but he could not be seen from the entrance unless someone came in from the street, which might well happen indeed. So there was need of haste. He bent down over the stone, seized the top of it firmly in both hands, and using all his strength, turned it over. Under the stone was a small hollow in the ground, and he immediately emptied his pockets into it. The purse lay at the top, and yet the hollow was not filled up. Then he seized the stone again with one twist, turned it back, so that it was in the same position again, though it stood a very little higher, but he scraped the earth about it and pressed it at the edges with his foot. Nothing could be noticed. Then he went out and turned into the square. Again, an intense, almost unbearable joy overwhelmed him for an instant, as it had in the police office. I have buried my tracks, and who can think of looking under that stone? It's been lying there, most likely ever since the house was built, and will lie as many years more. And if it were found, who would think of me? It's all over, no clue. And he laughed. Yes, he remembered that he began laughing a thin, nervous, noiseless laugh and went on laughing all the time he was crossing the square. But when he reached the K Boulevard, where 2 days before he had come upon that girl, his laughter suddenly ceased. Other ideas crept into his mind. He felt all at once that it would be sickening to pass that seat on which, after the girl was gone, Gone. He had sat and brooded, and that it would be hateful too to meet that whiskered policeman to whom he had given the 20 kopecks. Damn him! He walked, looking about him angrily and distractedly. All his ideas now seemed to be circling around some single point, and he felt that there really was such a point, and that now he was left facing that point. And for the first time, indeed, during the last 2 months. Damn it all! He thought suddenly, in a fit of uncontrollable fury. If it has begun, then it has begun. To hell with the new life, good Lord. How stupid it is. And what lies I told today, how despicably I fawned upon that wretched Ilya Petrovich. But that is all folly. But do I care for them all? And my fawning upon them? It's not that at all. It's not that at all. Suddenly he stopped. A new, utterly unexpected, and exceedingly simple question perplexed and bitterly confused him. If it all has really been done deliberately and not idiotically, if I really had an indefinite object, how is it I did not even glance into the purse and don't know what I had there, for which I have undergone these agonies, and have deliberately undertaken this base, filthy, degrading business? And here I wanted at once to throw into the water the purse together with all the things I which I had not seen in there. How's that? Yes, that was so. That was all so. Yet he had known it all before, and it was not a new question for him. Even when it was decided in the night, without hesitation and consideration, as though so it must be, as though it could not possibly be otherwise. Yes, he had known it all and understood it all. It surely had all been settled even yesterday at the moment when he was bending over the box and pulling the jewel cases out of it. Yes, so it was. It is because I am very ill, he decided grimly at last. I've been worrying and fretting myself, and I don't know what I am doing. Yesterday, and the day before yesterday, and all this time I've been worrying myself. I shall get well, and I shall not worry. But what if I don't get well at all? Good God, how sick I am of it all. He walked on without resting. He had a terrible longing for some distraction, but he did not know what to do, what to attempt, and new overwhelming sensation was gaining more and more mastery over him every moment. And this was immeasurable, almost physical repulsion for everything surrounding him, an obstinate, bitter feeling of hatred. All who met him were disgusting to him. He hated their faces, their movements, their gestures. If anyone had addressed him, he felt that he might have spat at him or bitten him. He stopped suddenly, and coming out on the bank of the river near the bridge of Vasilevsky Island. Why, he lives here in that house, he thought. Why, I have not come to Razumikin of my own choice. Here's the same thing over again. Very interesting to know, though. Have I come on purpose, or have I simply walked here by chance? Never mind. I said the day before yesterday that I would go and see him the day after. Well, and so I will. Besides, I really cannot go further now. He went up to Razumikin's room on the fifth floor. The latter was at home in his attic room, busily writing at the moment, and he opened the door himself. It was 4 months since they had seen each other, Razumikin was sitting in a rag dressing gown with slippers on his bare feet, unkempt, unshaven, and unwashed. His face showed surprise. Is it you? He cried. He looked his comrade up and down. Then, after a brief pause, he whistled. As hard up as all that. Why, brother, you have outdone me, he added, looking at Raskolnikov's rags. Come, sit down. You are tired. I'll be bound. And when he had sunk down on the leather sofa, which was in even worse condition than his own, Razumikin saw at once that his visitor was ill. Then Razumikin says, why, you are seriously ill. Do you know that? He began feeling his pulse. Raskolnikov pulled away his hand. Never mind, he said. I have come for this. I have no lessons I wanted, but I don't really want lessons. Razumikin says, but I say you are delirious, you know. Razumikin observed, watching him carefully. No, I'm not. Raskolnikov got up off the sofa as he had mounted the stairs to Razumikin's. He had not realized that he would be meeting his friend face to face. Now, in a flash, he knew that what he was least of all inclined for at that moment was to be face to face with anyone in wide world, and his anger rose within him. He almost choked with rage at himself as soon as he crossed Razumikin's threshold. Goodbye, he said abruptly, and walked to the door. Stop, stop, you strange fellow. I don't want to, said the other, again pulling away his hand. Then why the devil have you come? Are you mad or what? Why, this is almost insulting. I won't let you go like that. Well then, I came to you because I know no one but you who could help to begin. Because you are kinder than anyone, cleverer, I mean, and can judge. And now I see that I want nothing. Do you hear? Nothing at all. No one's services, no one's sympathy. And I am by myself alone. Come, that's enough. Leave me alone. Stay a minute, you scoundrel. You are a perfect madman. As you like, for all I care, I have no lessons, do you see? And I don't care about that. But there's a bookseller, Haruvi, Haruvimov, and he takes the place of a lesson. I will not exchange him for 5 lessons. He's doing publishing of a kind and issuing natural science manuals, and what a sales number they have. The very titles are worth the money. You always maintained that I was a fool, but by Jove, my boy, there are greater fools than I am. Now he is setting up for being advanced. Not that he has an inkling of anything, but of course I encourage him. Here are two sections of the German text. In my opinion, the crudest fakery. It discusses the question, is woman a human being? And of course, triumphantly proves that she is. Haruvi Mo is going to bring out this work as a contribution to the women's question. I'm translating it. He will expand these 2.5 sections into 6. We shall make up a gorgeous title, half a page long, and bring it out at half a ruble. It will do. He pays me 6 rubles the section. It works out to about 15 rubles for the job. And I have had 6 already in advance. When we have finished this, we are going to begin a translation about Wales. And then some of the duller scandals out of the second part of Less Confessions we have marked for translation. Somebody has told Harumiho that Druzio was a kind of writer, radical writer. You may be sure I don't contradict him, hang him. Well, would you like to do the second section of Is Woman a Human Being? If you would, take the German and pens and paper. All those are provided and take 3 rubles. For as I have had 6 rubles in advance on the whole thing. 3 rubles come to you for your share. And when you have finished the section, there will be another 3 rubles for you. And please don't think I'm doing you a favor. Quite the contrary, as soon as you came in, I saw how you could help me to begin with. To begin with, I'm weak in spelling, and secondly, I'm sometimes utterly lost in German. So that I make it up as I go along for the most part. The only comfort is that it's bound to be a change for the better. Though who can tell? Maybe it's sometimes for the worse. We'll take it. Raskolnikov took the German sheets in silence, took the 3 rubles without a word, and went out. Razumikin gazed after him in astonishment. But when Raskolnikov was in the next street, he turned back, mounted the stairs to Razumikin's again, and laying on the table the German article, and the 3 rubles went out again, still without saying a word. Are you raving or what? Razumikin shouted. Rose, too furiously asked, what joke is this? You'll drive me crazy too. What did you come to see me for? Damn you! I don't want translation, muttered Raskolnikov from the stairs. Then what the devil do you want? Shouted Raskolnikov from above. Raskolnikov continued descending the staircase in silence. Hey there! Where are you living? No answer. Well, confound you then. But Raskolnikov was already stepping into the street on the Nicholas Bridge. He was brought to full consciousness again by an unpleasant incident. A coachman, after shouting at him 2 or 3 times, gave him a violent lash on the back of his whip for having almost fallen under his horse's hooves. The lash so infuriated him that he dashed away to the railing. For some unknown reason, he had been walking in very middle of the bridge in the traffic. He angrily clenched and ground his teeth. He heard laughter, of course. Serves him right, a pickpocket, I dare say. Pretending to be drunk for sure and getting under the wheels on purpose, and you have to answer for him. It's a regular profession, that's what it is, said the passers-by. But while he stood at the railing, still looking angry and bewildered after the retreating carriage and rubbing his back, he suddenly felt someone thrust money into his hand. He looked. It was an elderly woman in a headscarf and leather shoes, with a girl, probably her daughter, wearing a hat and carrying a green parasol. Elderly woman says, take it, my good man, in Christ's name. He took it and they passed on. It was a piece of 20 kopecks. From his dress and appearance, they might have well taken him for a beggar asking for charity in the streets, and the gift of 20 kopecks he doubtless owed to the blow, which made them feel sorry for him. He closed his hand on the 20 kopecks like this, walked on for 10 paces, and turned facing the neighbor, looking toward the palace. The sky was without a cloud, and the water was almost bright blue, which is so rare in the neighbor. The dome of the cathedral, which is seen at its best from the bridge about 20 paces from the chapel, glittered in the sunlight, and in the pure air, every ornament on it could be clearly distinguished. The pain from the lash went off. and Raskolnikov forgot about it. One uneasy and not quite definite idea occupied him now completely. He stood still and gazed long and intently into the distance. This spot was especially familiar to him. When he was attending the university, he had hundreds of time, generally on his way home, stood still on the spot, gazed at this truly magnificent spectacle. Sorry, and almost always marveled at a vague and mysterious emotion it raised in him. It left him strangely cold. This gorgeous picture was for him blank and lifeless. He wondered every time at this gloomy and puzzling impression, and doubting himself, without finding the explanation of it. He vividly recalled those old doubts and perplexities, and it seemed to him that it was no mere chance that he recalled them now. It struck him as strange and ridiculous that he should have stopped at the same spot as before, as though he actually imagined he could think the same thoughts, be interested in the same theories and pictures that had interested him so short a time ago. He felt it almost amusing, yet it squeezed his heart. Deep down, hidden far away out of sight, all that seemed to him now. All his old past, his old thoughts, his old problems and theories, his old impressions, and that picture and himself and all he felt as though he were flying upward and everything were vanishing from his sight. Making an unconscious movement with his hand, he suddenly became aware of the piece of money in his fist. Fist. He opened his hand, stared at the coin, and with a sweep of his arm, threw it in water. Then he turned and went home. It seemed to him he had cut himself off from everyone and from everything at that moment. Evening was coming on when he reached home, so that he must be walking about 6 hours. 20 seconds, wait. Gods, look at the sky. So that he must have been walking about 6 hours. How and where he came back, he did not remember. Undressing and shaking like an overworked horse, he lay down on the sofa, drew his winter coat over him, and at once sank into sleep. It was dusk when he was awakened by a fearful scream. Good God, what a scream! Such unnatural sounds, such howling, wailing, grinding, tears, blows, and curses he had never heard. He could never have imagined such brutality, such frenzy. In terror, he sat up in the bed, almost fainting with agony. But the fighting, wailing, and cursing grew louder and louder. And then, to his intense amazement, he caught the voice of his landlady. She was howling, shrieking, and wailing rapidly, hurriedly, confusingly, so that he could not make out what she was talking about. She was begging, no doubt, not to be beaten, for she was being mercilessly beaten on the stairs. The voice of her attacker was so horrible from spite and rage that it was almost a croak. But he too was saying something, and just as quickly and indistinctly, hurrying and spluttering. At all at once, Raskolnikov trembled. He recognized the voice. It was the voice of Ilya Petrovich. Ilya Petrovich here and beating the landlady. He's kicking her, banging her head against the steps. That's clear. That can be told from the sounds, from the cries and thoughts. How's it? Is this world upside down? He could hear people running in crowds and from all stories and all those staircases. He heard voices, exclamations, knockings, door banging. But why? Why and how could it be? He repeated, thinking seriously that he had gone mad. But no, he heard two distinctly, and they would come to him then next. For no doubt it's all about that, about yesterday, good God. He would have been fast he would have fastened his door with the latch, but he could not lift his hand. Besides, it would be useless. Terror gripped his heart like ice, tortured him and numbed him. But at last, all this uproar, and after counting about 10 minutes, continuing about 10 minutes, began gradually to die down. The landlady was moaning and groaning. Ilya Petrovich was still uttering threats and curses. But at last, he, too, seemed to be silent, and now he could not be heard. Can he have gone away? Good Lord. Yes, and now the landlady is going too, still weeping and moaning. And then her door slammed. Now the crowd was going from the stairs to their rooms, exclaiming and disputing, calling to one another, raising their voice to a shout, dropping them to a whisper. There must have how could it be? Why had he come here? Raskolnikov sank phone out on the sofa, but could not close his eyes. He lay for half an hour in such anguish, such an intolerable sensation of infinite terror as he had never experienced before. Suddenly, a bright light flashed into his room. Nastasia came in with a candle and a plate of soup, looking at him carefully and making sure that he was not asleep. She set the candle on the table and began to lay out what she had brought: bread, salt, a plate, a spoon. You've eaten nothing since yesterday, I bet. You've been walking about all day, and you're shaking with fever, Nastasia said. Raskolnikov says, Nastasia, what were they beating the landlady for? She looked intensely at him. Who beat the landlady? She said. Just now, half an hour ago, Ilya Petrovich, the assistant superintendent, in the stairs. Why, why was he ill treating her like that? And why was he here? Nastasia examined him, silent and frowning, and her gaze lasted a long time, like this. He felt uneasy, even frightened in her searching eyes. Nastasia, why don't you speak? He said timidly, at last in a weak voice. It's the blood, she answered at last softly, as though speaking to himself. Blood? What blood? He muttered, growing white and turning toward the wall. Nastasia still looked at him without speaking. Nobody has been beating the landlady, she declared at last in a firm, resolute voice. He gazed at her, hardly able to breathe. I heard it myself. I was not asleep. I was sitting up, he said still more timidly. I listened a long while. The assistant superintendent came. Superintendent. Superintendent came. Everyone ran out on the stairs from all the apartments. No one has been here. There's the blood crying in your ears. When there's no way out for it and it gets thick, you begin imagining things. Will you eat something? He made no answer. Estessa still stood over him, watching. Give me something to drink, Estessa. She went downstairs and returned with a white clay jug of water. He remembered only swallowing one sip of the cold water and spilling some on his neck, then followed unconsciousness. Okay, here ends the chapter 2 from part 2 of Crime and Punishment. See you later, maybe. End this. end it.